Hello, I wanted to talk about taking the channel in a new direction or redirecting it somewhat. Um, I want the channel to be about life changing content. That is part of what trucking has been for me, is a big life change. It's been a very successful life change for me, but I don't want it to stop here. I have more that I want to try, and that should be coming up in the next few weeks. And we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure if I'm ready for it, but I think it's time to try and see if I've improved as a person and if I can get something along to work along different lines. I'm hoping that I can share some of the vision that I have of the life that I want. Not so specific that it's not useful for very many people. I'm hoping that I can share a vision that many people can find useful, because it's not tied to a specific career, but it's more about the future that we want for ourselves and who we are becoming as we move towards it. I want to focus on building a better life for myself and developing good connections with other people. So that's what I intend to focus on coming up. Just a little bit of history about where I've been in the past. I fell behind my generation pretty significantly, almost an entire generation probably worth of progress. I got left behind due to a failure that exposed a flaw in me that produced, it was a cycle of failure and trying something else, and then more failure, and giving up for a little bit, and then trying again, and then failing again, repeat several times. It was a little bit of a cycle for a while, and trucking, it seems, has finally broken me out of that cycle and helped me change in a way that actually moves towards what I want. That was part of the whole struggle. Was I lost for a while. I lost the vision of what I wanted because I was listening to what the world was offering, the houses and the cars and the kind of lifestyles that are kind of prevalent in our culture, and it didn't appeal to me, and it's not what I wanted. But I didn't have a vision for what I wanted, so it was hard to make any of the effort seem worthwhile. But I have found, over the course of time, I have found a vision that I believe in, that I want, that I think is possible. And I think it's possible for me to move there on my own, more or less, but I think it would be obviously a lot better with some other people. So either I want to find other people who are already moving in a similar direction, or hopefully inspire a few more as well, that we can try moving there together. It will be a while before I can have the kind of backwards looking view or the hindsight to say whether many of my ideas were good or not. So obviously everything should be taken with your own personal judgment, your own grain of salt, as it were. But I do hope that I can help a few find a vision that they might believe in as well, or their own vision. Maybe I can help you develop your own vision for what you're looking for. Just, I think part of it is just realizing that there are a lot of ways to live in the world, and you don't have to settle for the garbage that is being fed to you in our culture. I am an explorer by nature. I tend to see paths where others don't, so I hope that that might lend me or make me uniquely useful in finding even a sort of a path in idea space. It does. I think similar principles apply to real pathfinding and being open to seeing a way and to plot a path that others have not seen, or have not. Maybe it's an old path that hasn't been walked for a while. A lot of where I think I will end up going will probably be some mixture of that. I do have richness in time. I haven't been somebody who's been wealthy as far as money is concerned, but I have been very wealthy as far as time is concerned. And it's not something we're used to thinking about. But I've had a lot of time to think and to observe. I've not used all of it wisely. I've squandered some of it, but I've used a lot of it fairly well, and have to continue to develop, I think, continue to deepen as a person and gain some wisdom and understanding. It's not comprehensive, and there are many things that I still want to learn. I still need to investigate, but I hope that this a little bit of a seasoning and perspective that I've gained might be useful in helping myself and maybe a few others to see a different perspective. I also have a unique perspective due to an injury as part of the failure. It was part of the cycle of failure was uncovering the results of the injury. I believe this is not this is not stuff I found through like the medical system or anything, but it's through living my life and figuring out what's happening. I believe a head injury that I had as a child, around 9 or 10, I came off a skateboard and face planted into some asphalt, and had a concussion, lost consciousness, and had trouble seeing. So it's clearly a semi-serious injury that I believe may have, I think it probably injured parts of my brain. And it took a long time for me to figure out what it was that might not be working properly. But I think it comes down to some of the reward centers, or the ways that people detect good, or this is good, don't work properly in my brain. I think I'll say a little bit more about this in a bit, but I think I think that it will, as I've learned to work through and deal with living life without this something missing. But I think this will give me a unique perspective that might actually help find our way through a lot of what's going on, because I think part of what was damaged is a big part of what a lot of nefarious or a lot of vices and entrapments and addictions depend on pulling people in by this thing that doesn't work for me. So I hope that by being able to see through that without having access to that, I am able to find a different pathway to the good that might not be as corrupted or as gamed, as it's not used by people trying to take what you have the way some forces in our culture are basically have become predators, coaxing people to their doom. And I think that this injury has helped me escape some of that. Obviously, looking at my notes, I want to offer hope to some who feel lost and forgotten. I think that a lot of people in our culture today are not being helped very well. It seems like the advice everyone gives is for like the top maybe 10% of people, and then there's help for like maybe the bottom 10% of people, or like there's help, there's encouragement and advice if you're the top kind of performers, or if you're able to do high achieving sort of thing. And then there's help for you if you're low achieving, or if you need if you have like a whole list of problems. But for people that are somewhere in the middle, there's not a lot of helpful advice, I don't think. And also no one seems to care about us. And in reality, for a lot of you, your culture is actually grooming you to be farmed. We call that, and I guess that might be a gamer term, being farmed. But you're basically being raised as human cattle to fill indistinguishable roles in these, or so different kinds of parasites can suck your blood and turn you into a cog in their machine, giving them power, giving them resources, and they don't care about you. They don't care about your life and what makes a good life for you. They have helped to raise you in a way that you don't even understand what's going on, what could change, or how anything could be better. They want you to accept things as they are and give them the fruits of your labor and your life, basically. Toil. They'll burn you to a crisp, working you to death, and then profit off your misery as you slowly die, and then discard you. I don't think our culture doesn't care about us very much. The old have begun to parasitize the young. The systems of our government have set up these unsustainable Ponzi scheme. Basically, it's a Ponzi scheme on a cultural level that clearly can't work, but we're all being dedicated towards it because the old are willing to sacrifice the future of the young for their sustenance, for their continued well-being. They're trading the well-being of the young for the well-being of the old, and it doesn't seem to bother them. And like I said, a lot of advice in our culture is geared towards the top end of the bell curve. So in a normal distribution, you might be aware of a graph like this, but in a normal distribution, there will be the tail ends will be thin. So like the bottom percent and the top percent, or in terms of performance, will have a slim or a few people in them, and the majority of people will fit in a larger section in the middle. As you move towards the halfway point, the majority of the population will cluster closer to the middle in terms of performance, and then it diminishes on a curve in both directions as you move away from the middle. So that's a standard distribution, and it's found all over in nature and in tons of things. Anywhere, yeah, it's very, very common. And so I guess the idea I'm trying to get at is the advice that is given is to help just a very slim margin of people on the top end of the performance distribution, and it might help a few extra people push themselves into that high performing standard, and might actually help them. But I don't think for a lot of people, somewhere in the middle there, it doesn't really help you to get advice that's not useful. It's hard to explain, but I mean, something that I've had experience with is like climbing. If you go to a climbing gym or a climbing wall outside somewhere, the possibility you have of climbing, or another maybe a better example might be like a musical instrument, like a piano. You could technically, it's possible that you could sit down and play Mozart. Like, I don't know. It's like, what is stopping you from doing that? Like, understanding what is stopping you from doing that is it's kind of in the same direction, at least, of what is stopping you from having a good life. Because the advice that's given to you is advice for Mozart, and you're not Mozart or whoever, some great composer or pianist. You're not one of them, most of you. And the advice is for becoming one of them. So we have to figure out something that works for the rest of us. People who are not extremely special or super highly motivated, or just people that want a normal life. And I think a measure of a well patterned society, a way to rate it would be how well does it address the needs and concerns of many people, of many types of people, of many capabilities. And I think, well, ours definitely does not do very well at addressing. Most people, I think, are not having a great life, and are not anywhere near having I don't know. They might be nearer than they think, but it's not what's being offered. So I don't include myself in the top performer category. I've tended to be above average in many things. So from about the 50 percentile up to maybe the 90 percentile in a few handful of things. Maybe, probably not though. More likely 70 to 80% in some things, and I tend to be able to get above average on most things, mostly through just being able to pay attention and think through things. That lets me get, even on the things that I'm not terribly good at, I can manage a little bit that way. But I think that's what I want to concentrate on, or as far as the channel and what I say and who I'm talking to, I think I'm going to try to talk to people who are above average but not quite the high performers. So it's similar to me, I think. And I guess I wanted to try to give a vision of who that is in society. I think in a functioning society, who that is, the above average people, but again below the top performers. The above average people, I believe, make the world work and make things possible to a great degree. We're the people that make steel come out of the factories, or microchips, or deliveries happen on time, or things get built. We can't, almost by definition, we can't have a whole society of top performers. But even if we did, like, a lot of what they do only kind of has a place to even exist or even be worthwhile, because there are a lot of people making things work in real life, that make the systems and the background services and production that help make things possible, like anything possible. So I think the world needs us, even though they've ignored us for a long time. And I think we have some advantages even over top performers. I think there's reasons to enjoy being simply above average. I think a lot of times the top performers, they tend to have a problem with being too narrowly focused, and sometimes like to the detriment of maybe all else. That happens a lot. Or to many things, they will not be well balanced, and often they can even be unhappy. No matter what they achieve, they never stop and learn to enjoy the success that they have. They can't see it because they're just always constantly focused on the next thing, for higher, faster, stronger, better all the time, but never appreciate or never learn to appreciate what they have and what they've done. So in the end, it's almost meaningless to them. Whereas above average person might be more inclined to calm down a little bit and learn some of the life lessons that make you a deeper person and able more to appreciate the things that you have and to enjoy the good that's in your life. And really, the floor, or what it takes to be satisfied with your life, is actually a shockingly low bar. It doesn't take an incredible amount to be in a place where you could be happy and enjoy your life if you learned how. And with that skill, then being above average and being satisfied, you can have a good life and a well-balanced life, and maybe even a longer, more productive life overall. We used to tell a fable about a tortoise and a hare, at least when I was in school. I don't know if it's still taught, but the basic idea was the hare, which they called it the hare, but you'd know it as a rabbit. The hare or the rabbit was racing the tortoise or the turtle, and the rabbit burns himself out, takes a nap, and the tortoise ends up passing him because he's slow and steady. And so you might have heard slow and steady wins the race. That's part of the illustration. That's the lesson from the illustration of the story that we learn. But I found out, well, in our culture, nobody really believes in the rabbit or in the tortoise. It seems everybody wants to be a rabbit. Everybody wants to find more rabbits. Nobody wants to be a tortoise and to learn the ways of the tortoise. So I don't know why they told us that story. I think they were kidding themselves about what people wanted. But I think it is actually true. The better way is the way of the tortoise, and I am all in on the way of the tortoise. I kind of have to be at this point, but I think there's definitely advantages to being the tortoise, and learning to take things slower. I think we're open to a longer, better life than always being so wound so tight and just always going so fast that you can't even really appreciate anything. That's a huge key, is appreciation. If you can't appreciate what you have or what you've achieved, then it doesn't matter. Another kind of picture of it is, well, I want to talk about some another sort of picture is like a gladiator versus a Spartan, kind of. The picture of a gladiator is somebody who's super high performing in the arena. Everybody's watching. It's super glorious, super glamorous, and only a few survive. And whereas the Spartan is more, it's a trained to be part of a unit. He's only as good as his ability to hold his shield and defend the person next to him. And he's not known specifically often, but that's the type of person armies are made out of, that do things that change the world. Because the gladiator there's not enough of them. There are not enough successful gladiators to move nations or to do big projects. That's sort of what the special forces are. Is what happens when you gather a whole bunch of really high performing gladiator level people. What can you do? And they can do a whole lot. They achieve a lot through violence of action and high mobility. They maintain their edge and can eliminate targets and do incredible feats. But if you ever want to hold a place and put somebody on guard duty or hold a line, if you want to stand guard on the wall, you need people willing to hold a shield and protect one another. And the advantages of the high performer are less useful in that situation, where you just need people moving in the same direction together and who know what to do, how to work together. That is how the majority of things, huge projects that change the world or change nations, are done with less advanced or less less of the high performers or less of the superstars and more of the soldiers, people willing to just play their part and be good be well trained, but also be concerned with the people next to them. So I think it's time for us to learn, to seek the knowledge of how we can stand together, of how we can take up the tools of our time and help defend each other and advance our cause. We need to gather and know what is good, what is wise, so that we can march in a way that's beneficial to us and those we care about. But it's time for more of us to get involved, to stop believing that you're useless and helpless, but learning how to be, not just, it's not enough to just believe that we can be a force to change for the good, but we need to work on how to actually do it. There's part of me that is glad to live in a time of dragons and demons and monsters. They're all throughout our culture, in places of power. They've risen to places of prominence. We have fools and crooks running many of our social systems, in many high places in power. Crooks and fools, demons and monsters, and dragons. And it is daunting. There's a lot that needs to be done. But at the same time, I can be glad that we live in a time like this, that there is something that needs to be done that we can learn to do. that we can be part of a story that's worth retelling, that we can be a force for good, that we might be able to participate in some events and things that end up being worthwhile to remember. I think that's there for us, or here it is here for us. A life worth living and worth remembering. The forces that have taken power, that are corrupt, that are destroying our culture, and there's more to be said about that, but they are weak against the truth. Most of what they do, or much of what they do, relies on lies and deception and trickery. They are weak to the truth. So for us, we need to learn to see the truth, to know it, and to speak it to ourselves and to one another. For a long time, we've lived in fantasy and illusions is the word. We've lived in a world of illusions created. A lot of the illusions were that things were okay and everything was fine, and we have people working on that, and this is the way things are. But that's not true, because the things you were taught in school isn't a good representation of how things really are. We know we could be better, but we haven't even been raised. Many people have not been raised to the level of cognitive level to be able to support the kind of structures that used to be in place. We've regressed, I think, in culture, because we've failed to raise people to a high enough level to sustain the structures as they were. So we will probably have to retreat to old structures, to medieval or barbaric structures, or maybe there's some other midway point that we can manage. But I don't think we have the sophistication, the level of development in many people to sustain the systems that we were handed. We do, in fact, live in the world that we deserve. Through our actions and in our inactions, we create the world that is the way it is. And we don't deserve all the things that that's one of the illusions, the big illusions that we've had. All these things that we claim are rights, that we deserve. We don't deserve. I don't know. Well, I'd have to get back to. I am not certain of what we would deserve. That's a fair place to leave it. But to think that we deserve justice and peace and goodness and fairness and all these things, but we aren't capable of producing them or even supporting them, how would you possibly deserve the kind of world that you can't help to even maintain, let alone create. So we need to become better people so that we can deserve a better life. And we are probably going to have to help recreate it or retrace some of our steps that we've lost and we've fallen in many ways. But if we want something better, we need to learn how to build it, how to make it for real, not just an illusion. So, but I think it's possible, it's out there, it's been done before. We can do it again, and we can do it better. I think that's entirely possible, but it's not guaranteed for any of us. And I think realistically, we're not going to save the whole world. We're not going to convince everybody. So what we'll have to do is save the ones we can, do the best we can, try to make oasis, what is the plural of oasis, whatever. We'll have to try to do our best to create spaces that are good and protected, and invite as many as we can manage to share with what we manage to build. But we'll have to be wise, and we'll have to be powerful if we want to have anything that's left that's not given over to the evil that has been ruling so far. But we can do it. I guess I'm trying to leave on a positive note. We can do it. We can have a better life. And we don't have to change the entire world to make a whole world of difference for ourselves and for a few others. That's what I think what we're going to aim for. Make a world of difference for a few people. For yourself, to start with yourself, and then look for others you can band together with and help.